Hi guys, so thank you for joining me for the today's Pericast. And today's Pericast is going to be on the running speeds that you should be training at if you are a boxer, or having your boxers train at if you're a boxing trainer. Now, there's a lot of facts and figures that I'm going to be throwing at you. I don't want you to try and remember all of those facts and figures, because I have taken the careful thing of preparing a cheat sheet for you, which if you want to, you can have this. You just need to email admin@boxercise.co.uk and you can have all the facts and figures with these things on that is going to help you do your running training for boxing. So by all means, just email and ask for that and we'll send it to you. It's free of charge, don't worry. It's just this is Pericast, so I'm not charging you for it. Right, so there's a lot of boxers who are training who are fighting 3-rounders, and if they are if they're fighting 3-rounders, then the demands of those fights are anaerobic rather than aerobic. And a lot of professional fighters who fight in the shorter fights, like the 4-rounders, but a lot of the training that they're doing when they change is they think they've got to train like a professional, and they think this whole thing of if you train for 10 rounds, then 4 rounds will be easy. Well, it isn't. It's not that way around at all, because the demands of the fight are anaerobic in their nature. Now, before you start thinking, oh my God, I've got to change all of my training, what on earth am I going to do? The thing is that you don't need to make so many changes as you're going to think, because, as I'll explain to you, because what you're doing already is 77% correct. So if all you're doing is long runs, 77% of your runs should be made up of long recovery runs. So I'm going to go through the different types of runs that I want you to be doing, the percentage and the percentage of distance you need to be covering as part of your weekly mileage, and the effort rate that you should be putting in. So number one, first, is long runs, your recovery runs. Now, these are the things that most boxers are doing already. These are actually recovery runs, which is if you have a 1 mile personal best time, say if it's 6 minutes, for example, these runs should be done at 65 to 79% of your maximum heart rate, which equivalates to 1.5 to 2 minutes per mile slower than your 1 mile PB. So you should be running it in something like 7.5 to 8 minutes. 77% of your runs are going to be made up of that type of running. Let's move on to the next type. Now, these are often called tempo runs, and I hate the word tempo. I've got no idea why people call them tempo runs, but their proper technical name is threshold or acidosis runs. You're going as fast as you can go without getting into lactic acid buildup, acidosis. Now, how fast does this need to be? You take your 1 mile PB and you're running 10 to 15 seconds slower than your fastest 1 mile. Now, these are hard to pace and very hard to do because you've got to hold back. You've got to hold back that little bit in reserve. So you're going as fast as you possibly can, but without going into lactic acid. Now, that's around about 83 to 92% of your maximum heart rate, but only 10% of your weekly mileage needs to be made up of these type of runs. Let's go on to number 3. Interval runs. Now, these are really, really useful, I find, because you can be quite specific with these. The golden rule is that the rest period must be shorter than the work periods, and this should be only 8% of your weekly mileage, only 8%. Now, a good trick of this that I like to do is, if I'm fighting 8 rounds, like I'm way too old to fight 8 rounds now, but if I was fighting 8 rounds, what I would do is 8 times 800 meters, which would take around about the 3-minute mark. If you can go a bit further than that in that time, then great. It would take around about the 3-minute mark for 800 meters, and I would do that 8 times with a 1-minute rest. So, but only 8% of your weekly mileage needs to be made up of that type of training. Now, these things are at 98 to 100% of your maximum heart rate, so these are well and truly into the lactic acid. You passed the acidosis threshold. I can see someone's asking a question, but my camera thing's not working. How many miles a week? It's a very good question. Now, if you're running the same kind of energy systems that say Mo Farah, for example, is going to run, which is essentially you are running the same types of things. He's running around about 110 up to 120 miles a week. I don't advocate that at all. A number that is far more appropriate is 50 or less, around about 50 miles or less. So when I say that you're doing 8 times 800 meters with a 1 minute rest, and that makes up 8%, that's assuming a 50 miles over the whole week, building up the whole amount. It's a very, very good question, that. But obviously that's going to depend on the age of the boxer and the ability of the boxer and their training age, how long they've been training. Let's go on to number 4, repetitions. Now these are my favourite to run, and these are done flat out, absolutely flat out. These are done 100%. The golden rule is that the recovery shouldn't be too short that it affects technique, because you're blasting these out at full speed. Only 5% of your weekly mileage is going to be made up of this. Now, sometimes you're going to think, oh, what if I do more? It's going to affect your recovery. Remember, 77% of your runs are going to need to be recovery runs, so they're going to have to be shorter. So 5% of your weekly mileage for this only. Now, what I like to do, I like to play with this. What I do is, if, say, I can maintain 3 sustained attacks per round when I'm boxing, what I'll do is I'll go 3 times 100 meters with a 20-second rest in between, which is just like walking around. It's active rest, it's not standing still. And then you go again. You do that 3 times, then you have a 1 minute rest, and you repeat that over 8 rounds. So you can see the specificity of the running is matching to the needs of the fight that you're going to go into. But here's the thing, right? Now, you'll hear this said of quite a few boxers, even at world level. They've only got 8 rounds of stamina to last for 12 rounds. Now, this is a really, really good point. Now, if you have, say, 12 rounds and you've got 3 sustained attacks that you can maintain per round, then you've got within you 36 attacks that you can make within, whether it's 8 rounds or 12 rounds. If you're forced by your opponent, because they've got a good anaerobic system, if you're forced by your opponent to use those attacks up before you get to the 12th round, then you're going to be gassing, you're going to be blowing up, and then you're going to perhaps suffer a late points defeat or a late point stoppage because you've run out of energy. So what you're going to need to do in that case is, if you're making 3 sustained round attacks per round, you're going to need to step your training up so you're able to do and train for 4 times 100 with a 20-second recovery, and do that 8 or 12 times. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to be training specifically for the number of rounds that you are training. You're going to train the energy systems in this order. 77% of it is going to be long runs, 10% acidosis or threshold runs, 8% intervals, 5% only repetitions. And that, trust me, is the magic formula. It works. Now, some of these things are substitutable and some are not. It's a big word, that. Long runs can be substituted for skipping. As long as you're working in that same sort of 65 to 79% maximum heart rate, you can substitute that with skipping if you like. Then as well, intervals, you can substitute that with circuit training. So you can swap things out. Also, I know that this is about running, but when you're on the bag, don't just train at one pace. If you're training at one pace, you use these proportions to train at those different paces whilst you're training, because you're training energy systems. You're not just training to fight and just hitting the bag. You need a bit more specificity to it. So use those makeups, use those formulae, and then that is going to help you train better, and your recovery is going to be better. So many trainers and fighters are leaving it to the last 8 weeks to train and then just killing themselves. No wonder they go in gassed and tired and not able to do anything. So if you would like that sheet with all of those facts and figures, with all of them things there, what you can do, now you know your business good enough. Thanks for sharing your knowledge, bro. Cheers, dude. No worries. If it helps you, then great. My job is coach education, and without waiting for the powers on high to disseminate this information to you, you can just steal it from me and I'll help you. So good for you, and I hope your boxers do well. So if you want that information, just email us. Once again, the address is admin@boxercise.co.uk. That's how you spell it. And then just say, please send me, say please, because you're getting this for free. Please send me the running information sheet. And I'll cut and paste it out of the document that I did it in originally, and I'll send it to you, and you can have it free and good luck with it. Stick it on the wall in the gym, and tell your boxers that they're training with purpose instead of just hitting a bag, because God knows there's enough of them do that. Does anyone have any questions to ask on that? I know it's very technical, but those figures are pretty much, you can play with them according to which boxer you're working with, but you don't want to be changing them too much, because otherwise they will be overtrained going into a fight, which I know a lot of people talk about. Now you can argue why someone is overtrained, because you know the result. Any questions? 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. See you tomorrow, guys. Tomorrow I'm going to do a footwork drill. Going to do something that is a footwork drill. Somebody asked me if I could explain the difference between pointing the foot this way and this way for different things and different footwork stuff. So I'll do that tomorrow. 2 o'clock tomorrow. See you then, guys.